All right, hello everybody. Welcome to UK CORRAL. This is the podcast that reviews every single comic ever written by a British writer. I'm your co-host Michael, and as always, I'm joined by Adamantium. Nice, and of course, also Nice Man.
If I were brave enough, I would do an imitation of nice baby.
All right. Well, anyway, we're gonna jump right to it this week. I kind of sprung this on you two, without any notice, but this is we're reviewing the first ever Doctor Who comic. Actually, I found out there was a comic adaptation of the movie starring Peter Cushing. Did you know about that?
No.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I just read it exists. But anyway, this is the first. We're doing the first Doctor Who story from Doctor Who Weekly #1, and I had the covers somewhere, but of course I forgot to load them in. But we're looking at the Marvel Premiere reprints, which is the American reprint of the UK comics. And I believe, Nice Man, you bought this off the stands when it came out, correct?
I did, for 15p, as it says on the cover.
P? What is 15p?
15 pence.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Because that cover is the British edition.
Isn't that funny? The British edition of the American edition of the reprint of the UK edition.
Yeah,
yes.
there you go. Yeah, that's true. The British edition of the American reprint of the British edition. Yes.
And you were a Doctor Who fan?
I was there from the very first Doctor Who.
Come on.
I was there for the very first appearance of the Daleks.
Wow.
I remember as a young kid being kind of thrilled when they opened up the Dalek and one of the characters got in it. I used to have a toy Dalek, battery operated, good sized toy Dalek. Yeah, I wish I still had it. And I bought another miniature Dalek on a ball bearing. So I love them. Yeah.
So we'll have an extensive Doctor Who conversation in another episode, but tonight we're limited for time, so we're just going to talk about this comic. But this cover's by Walt Simonson. It's Marvel Premiere number 57. This is back when Marvel had all these anthology series that they'd rotate features, but the success of this and the next issue led to Doctor Who getting his own series in the US, and it was a Baxter Page series, if you remember that.
You know what? I don't remember that at all.
Really?
If somebody asked me to speak about this, which I guess you will, I would have said it was like 2 issues and that was it.
No, there was a Baxter series. I have like a bunch of the issues. I think it was only like 16 issues, but they all have like Dave Gibbons covers. They're really slick.
Wow.
Yeah.
I gotta look at this.
So anyway, Adam, this is your first time reading this, correct? Okay, so we should point out this is credited to John Wagner and Pat Mills, but apparently Pat Mills wrote it alone. The art is by the legendary Dave Gibbons, who of course went on to do Watchmen as well as a bunch of other things. And we'll talk more about that later. But Adam, if you want to jump in and do the summary for this first chapter, please, of the Iron Legion.
Yeah, absolutely. Iron Legion opening up with a page showing what looks like a mixture of Roman regalia with futuristic technology roaming through the streets of London. What we see next is that the Doctor, this one is the 4th Doctor, I believe, Tom Baker's iteration of him, landing within London, going through a shop, just going to purchase himself some gummy worms. There's a few asides here about currency. He wants to use a Zagon pound note, as he says. They're a little on the slimy side, but absolutely inflation-proof. That's a great little joke there. But they're interrupted by this conclave of these Romanesque soldiers approaching, these Romanesque androids. They break into the shop and kill the shop owner, which obviously mortifies the Doctor. He looks over and is able to somehow incapacitate this ironmonger soldier. And by doing that, he's then able to, let me see, he reprograms him to enter into the throng of the soldiers, where he comes across their general. And I apologize, my page is just showing up a little bit late But yes, the general that he comes across is this eagle-faced fellow um, that the Doctor will sometimes insult by referring it to more as a parrot-faced individual.
Mhm.
But essentially, what happens is the Doctor runs away after a brief skirmish with this character and is fired upon, but he just manages to escape into the TARDIS and displace himself through time, space, and that's how I believe that's the first chapter. I'm not quite clear the demarcations of these might.
Yeah, and I was gonna try and figure that out, but well, oh well, we'll just guess. Okay, so we can talk about this one quickly. Okay, the first thing I have to say, I already am a huge fan of Dave Gibbons, but I love this art. I really do. And in fact, I would argue I actually like the inking because he's inking himself here, obviously, but I like his inking here better than his inking on Watchmen because he uses so much shadow here. And if there's one criticism I have of Watchmen, it's that his art's a little bit stiff and a little bit focused more on, I guess you could say, line work rather than shadow. But like this face here, I think is incredible. I love this. I like how each panel is a very well composed, almost like a photograph, right? Like this, and then this. He's just a very thoughtful artist. And this is action, but it's not sloppy action. It's very organized action. And you can see like the shadow here and the texture, the helmet, everything. I just love this stuff. But nice man, what's your first impression of this one?
I'm not a fan of Doctor Who in comics. I'm not a fan of Star Trek in comics. I think
Okay.
both of them don't translate well to comics.
Okay.
The best parts about Star Trek and Doctor Who, like the original series, are almost like the quiet moments, really, and the interplay between the characters. The other stuff, you can kind of take it or leave it. Yeah, is it well told? Art-wise, yes. In writing this and the succeeding story arcs are too contrived. It's really kind of sloppy. It's just too easy. And no, I don't like it. He doesn't have a companion. He doesn't have a human companion. I know, of course, there are coincidences in the TV show and contrivances, but here they're really the conveniences are really convenient. And the thing that saves it for me is the humor. There's humor in it, and it made me laugh here and there. But otherwise, I'm not really interested in this metallic, metal army tank. That's not Doctor Who for me. Doctor Who's not tanks, and you could say, Cybermen, but no, not tanks.
I have a comment about that, but I'll wait. Adamantium, what's your first impression of this?
Well, I'm very much akin to both of what you've said. I should mention this general's name is General Ironicus, which I appreciate. And I do love the humor peppered throughout this. This is the one thing that's really kept me engaged. Aside from the art, I do agree. Gibbons is an incredible artist, and I think this is just a great exercise for him to play with penciling and then inking these characters. But does it make an engaging Doctor Who story? I'm a very casual viewer and fan of that franchise, so I wouldn't say that I have a level of expertise to draw upon. But as Paul was saying, there's an interplay with characters that's missing here. There's a sort of, I guess you could say, groundedness. Maybe that's buoyed by the lack of a budget on the show traditionally that challenged, I would say, the creators to be more creative with their storylines. And one thing I do agree is tonally, it does seem a little bit at odds with what I'm used to with Doctor Who, which is famously a sort of pacifist hero, I guess you would call it. And here with these giant tanks and this war imagery, it just seems to be, I don't know, at ends with what I'm accustomed to. I don't dislike it. There's a lot I enjoy in terms of the humor and the art, but it hasn't really fully engaged me yet. That's where I'm at with the story so far.
So one thing I will say that one thing that stood out is the moment the tank showed up, it took me out of it a little bit because I thought you couldn't have this on the show because they didn't have the budget for it. So, you raise a good point, Paul, that part of the charm of both Star Trek and Doctor Who is the budget, the special effects, the music, the actors, right? Like those things cast a magic spell, and when you take those things out, you're left with this writer's interpretation of that, premise, but with none of the parameters that make the show so charming in both cases, right? And I do agree. I don't like Star Trek in comics. Even when Star Trek's written by Peter David, one of my favorite writers, I did not enjoy those Star Trek comics. And part of the reason is because it didn't fit the style of the show. So I can definitely agree with that. I just think that instead of comparing it to the Doctor Who TV show, I'm comparing it to, once again, Marvel comics from the 1980s and DC comics in the 1980s, and then by that standard, I think this is better. This is more enjoyable. But we got a lot more chapters to talk about, so let's jump to the next one.
Yes,
Okay,
actually, Mike, if you don't mind, would you be okay if I just jumped ahead and gave the next little
7 of them? Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Well, we got telepathy here because Mike and I are thinking, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Merry
Go ahead, Adam.
Christmas to me, I
Yeah.
guess. Anyways, if I must, essentially what the Doctor unearths after escaping in time space with the TARDIS is that he's encountered an alternative Earth, one whose history was changed by the Roman Empire never losing power. It persisted, which is why there's the Roman sort of aesthetic, and yet there's this advanced contemporary technology. And what's happening now is this Iron Council with the General Ironicus is looking to pursue and stretch their rule over other dimensions and other planets. So, of course, the Doctor interferes with some sort of procession that happens where Ironicus is leading the Iron Legion through this big procession. Of course, Ironicus does not take kindly to the Doctor's interference and tells his soldiers to apprehend and to arrest the Doctor, at which point they're introduced into the Emperor, Emperor Adolphus, who is but a young, bratty child. Imagine a 7-year-old Caligula, and you kind of have the idea of what the Emperor is. He's a bratty, snotty-nosed little kid who seems to be just drowning in opulence, and then there's his mother. Now, the Doctor's a little suspicious of what's happening exactly, but he stays around. He observes kind of the retro-futurist idea of what this perpetual Roman state would be, including having a Colosseum and a gladiatorial arena with these alien mutant species battling each other. He basically denies being able to help Ironicus with his plans. He refuses to lend him the TARDIS for that. So he throws him into the pool of ectoslime, where there is a battlefield taking place, the said arena, and this giant slug alien, which seems to just enthrall the audience. The Doctor is even taking up some sort of implement to defend himself. And the great little bit of humor is after this failed conflict, he understands, oh, this thing is just not understood. So he actually, rather than battles it, he has a conversation. And he explains, oh, it's just trying to tell a joke and you're not getting it. So there's a little bit of humorous miscommunication happening there. Ironicus is not pleased by this outcome, though, and he commands for the Doctor to be brought to him, where he plans to imprison him on a slave galley, where he will be imprisoned along with other dissenters from this Iron... I keep calling it the Iron Council, but it's actually the Iron Legion, pardon me. And upon this slave galley, we are introduced to Morris, who is a cyborg, a human being that's been augmented with so much robotic implements and arms and various doodads that he's more machine than human, and he talks in a very slow manner, as if his brain's been affected by all the cybernetic augmentation. It's been revealed through the discourse between the Doctor and Morris that Morris ended up this way because, being on the slave galley, He attempted to escape numerous times, and each time incurred some horrible injury, and they kept repairing him and augmenting him with these robotic parts till he ended up in the state that he is. And there's actually a very touching scene where he's assuming the doctor will just recoil from him, thinking him disgusting. And the doctor says, no, not at all. Compared to the ectoslime, you're almost handsome. And they build up a little rapport, and we get the sense that this is going to be the companion for the doctor, at least for this story. Now, as they're on the galley and they look over to see Ironicus, Adelphus, and Adelphus's mother walk by on the plank, he sees something unsettling about the mother, and he realizes that mother is not a woman, is not a human being, but is something else, something alien, something horrifying. And that's the end of that next chapter.
Well, I mean, this is obviously an idea we've seen before. You know, this idea of a parallel world where the Roman Empire has not fallen. So I guess my adjusted review is to say that if it wasn't for this art, I would not be particularly excited to keep reading. However, I'm still enjoying it because I'm liking the characterization of the Doctor and the humor that we mentioned. And I like this new character that they introduced. What's his name? What's the cyborg's name? Yeah, you know, so I'm enjoying it. Nice man, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Dave Gibbons' art is very, very good. You know, perhaps even better than I'm thinking of when he was on Green Lantern, you know, with Len Wein.
Yep.
That this seems better than that. And I think the slight break we have to give Pat Mills is this was written like 79, I think. So now for us now in 2025, this looks really cliched, an alternative world, Roman Empire never finished. So, but in 79, I guess it wasn't so bad to have that. And the Emperor, what's his name? Adolphus or something?
Adolphus, yes.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
here.
Who does he? You know, every time I have questions for you, who does he remind you of? It's always a loaded question.
Wait, do you know the answer?
Well,
obviously Adolf Hitler.
No. Commander
Well,
Kidd.
Who?
Commander Kidd from Robo Hunter.
Robo Hunter.
Oh, well, I mean, maybe, but
I think he's just a miniature Caligula from the looks of him. I don't know.
Right, but I mean, it's going against the, you know, like a commander. What is an infant in diapers? And here we've got an emperor. What? He's just a bratty kid carrying a toy. It's in the same vein.
I see it as like I mean, the fact that he's Adolphus, to me, it's a criticism of that personality type, like even a Trump just being like a petulant child. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then what else? There was something else, but doesn't come to me right now. Oh, it'll come to me in a bit, I think, because he's only just met Morris. Great name, isn't it? Morris.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, with the British writers, you can always tell that they're not going to make something glamorous. They're going to undercut something, you know. Well, no, there's some other comments, but they'll come later. I'll give them later.
Okay. So Adam, do you want to keep going, or what do you think?
Well,
We need to
there's
pay
only a
him
few more
more.
pages of this issue. So how about I just do us a little Christmas miracle by wrapping this one up, and then I'll leave the next issue for your wonderful summaries.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. So we're now off of the galley ship, and we've made it to the Temple of the Gods. And this is where the galley members, the slaves, are deciding, well, we've had enough of this. So with some influence by the Doctor, Morris decides to break out of his chains, rips paneling off the walls of the galley ship to enable their escape.
Oh, wait,
So
sorry.
the Doctor,
I'm behind.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Morris would be very disappointed. Well,
Yes, he would.
going to the next page, we're just seeing some episodes of their escape, some battling, some punch-ups, some more interactions. Even though fight scenes within comics are not always my favorite, as I described, Gibbons has a great dynamism in his work. I always appreciate his action sequences, and I thought this one was spectacularly done, and it doesn't overstay its welcome at one page. But just as they evade all the guards of the Tower of the Gods and they're able to escape their pursuers, there's some other figures slinking from the shadows, and also reminiscent of Robo Hunter, we have Gusher, who is this almost old Prospector style sputtering robot emitting oil from the top of his head. He is stuttering and he's not able to really claim sentences together, so the doctor has to help him by lighting his oil lamp at the top of his head. Again, much like some of the other characters in Robo Hunter, he has certain affectations with his speech. Definitely, there's a sort of Cockney, or maybe even a Southern element where he speaks in the following sort of cadence. Me's hands is too tired to turn eyes wheel. I'll let you take that as it is. Anyway, with Gusher following them along, they enter into this Tower of the Gods, where
Isn't his name Vesuvius?
Oh, I apologize. So they refer to him as a gusher because of his oil. And I do actually appreciate his name being Vesuvius, having this character with this clipped, inarticulate speech being called Vesuvius, who happens to have a candle flickering at the top of his head, is a very humorous touch. I appreciate that. However, they end up within Ironicus's Tower of the Gods, and they look up to see these pedestals on top of which appear to be statues of these strange demonic-looking deities, but they're not deities. The statues move, and the Doctor reveals what he knew all along, that these are some of his most feared adversaries, the Malvilus. They are the gods of the Roman Empire. And that is how we end that collection, that first American issue of Marvel Comics Doctor Who.
So before we say anything, nice man, I've only got limited knowledge of classic Doctor Who. Are you familiar with these characters here, these aliens?
Not at all.
Really? So you haven't seen every episode then?
No, because, when I was 14 and we went to live in the Mediterranean, I couldn't see it. I was aware of it, but I couldn't see it. And then back briefly, so I would have seen it then back to the Mediterranean, then I wouldn't have seen it, and so on.
Gotcha. Okay. So, I mean, I think this is kind of a cool twist, finding out that these established Doctor Who characters are the gods of the Roman Empire. I think that's kind of cool. Yeah. Although, I must say, I'm not particularly interested in the idea that they're on an alternate Earth, where the Roman Empire has never fallen, because to me, whenever they're on, it's like if the Justice League goes to an alternate Earth where it's ruled by the crime syndicate, or it's ruled by Nazis, I always feel like, well, it's not really your Earth, so what? Yeah. That's just my feeling. What do you think, Nice Man?
I do want to point out...
Or Adam. Yeah, go ahead.
Before we go on, sorry, I just want to clarify something. I do not believe these were characters ever shown within the Doctor Who series itself. I think these were exclusive creations for the comic, and I'm just going to be backed up by saying I can't find any information about them online for appearances within the TV series, and just their character design seems too articulated, too bizarre to really match the budget of the TV show. I really believe these are exclusive creations for the comic itself.
Okay. Looking it up. Not that I don't trust you, but I'm looking it up just in case.
It's kind of mistake sometimes when there's like a beloved show and then suddenly you have a big budget. Oh, we can do things we never did before, but then you destroy the show. I'm so glad that the Doctor Who deal with Disney has ended after 2 miserable seasons, because it's just awful, absolutely awful. All through the Disney Doctor Who episodes, we got the music just won't quit. And it's rah-rah music or what other kind of music. And it's like, shut the hell up. It's not Doctor Who action, adventure, hero. That's not what it is.
Right. I agree with that.
It has to be an intimate series where even like, with one of my 2 favorites, Peter Capaldi, You know, where he has a quiet moment and sits with his companion and says, you know, am I a good man? Questions like this is not about big budget stuff and big and phantasmagoric and music. It's not, that's not what it is.
I mean, I'll be the first to say that there has, since day one of the new Doctor Who, there's a charm that was lost starting in 2005. They tried to make it too much of an action adventure, too fast paced, too modern, too hip. And of course, I know that things have to adapt. But if you look at Star Trek: The Next Generation, once it found its footing, it matched the tone of the original show, but the writing just got better, I think.
Yeah, it was much, much better, especially better than the third season of the original show.
Well, of course. But anyway, we can't talk too much about that. But Adam, are you familiar with the new Trek or new Doctor Who versus old? Are you like, how much have you seen?
Very cursory. I
Okay.
really got into the series with the reinvigoration with the 2005 series. I
Okay.
didn't have any exposure to it prior to. If it was televised, I just missed it. I wasn't able to find old episodes, but I had heard about it. It was one of those
Okay.
legendary franchises and series that I just never got around to being able to view. So my introduction was the new series, and I enjoyed it for what it was. And I think, yeah, you can argue there's a certain charm lacking compared to the older series. I think every series, every iteration had an identity or had a charm to it that was distinct. And you know, I think there's a reason to acclaim some of those later series versus the earlier ones and vice versa. But I do agree with the sentiment that was brought up because I recall when Buffy the Vampire Slayer was brought on as an eighth season in comic form. And, you know, our now long canceled friend Joss Whedon was went on saying, oh, well, at this point, we have no budgetary constrictions. We can do anything. And so they opened up with these grandiose battles and these big flights. And very similar, even though they are completely different shows, part of the charm and part of the element that I enjoyed about the Buffy the Vampire Slayer series was its lack of budget, was how they had to be creative to work around the limitations. And when people are just showing off what would be these grandiose battles or these big epic scenes, you don't have the same charm. And as I think it was stated time and time again, you're referencing Doctor Who and Star Trek, I'm referencing Buffy. You don't get the engagement in the interactions between characters, which is what the appeal of the show was in the first place. Now, thankfully, I think so far this comic has had enough humor in it to keep me somewhat engaged. And I like the rapport between Morris and the Doctor. I actually do enjoy that in this comic.
Yeah.
But other than that, there's not that same hook for me for this. The Malvillas, by the way, I'm probably mispronouncing their name, but they were exclusively created for the comic. I double checked it, and yeah, they
Okay.
never made an appearance in the series.
I got one thing to say. One thing I'll say about Buffy. I am a huge fan of the TV show, and I don't have the slightest interest in reading that comic at all because it, just like Star Wars. I love Star Wars, but I like Harrison Ford and I like Mark Hamill. And I like Carrie Fisher. I don't love Star Wars enough to read a comic that's a pale imitation of the movies. Although I have, but they're just not great. And then the last thing I'll say is there's one exception to this rule, and Paul, you might be familiar with it. Do you remember the Superboy TV show from
Yeah.
1988 to 92?
Yeah.
The
I
comic,
remember it as well.
yes, okay. The comic book adaptation. Did you ever read that? The spin-off?
No.
DC put out a spin-off with many of the issues drawn by Kurt Swan, some of them by Ty Templeton, covers by Kevin Maguire. This series is a hidden gem. It's like a throwback to the Silver Age Superboy, but still within the continuity of the TV show. So if you can dig up those issues, because I don't think they've ever been reprinted, I definitely recommend picking them up.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know, I just one quick note before we get to the next issue. I don't want to take up too much time with this, but I do want to argue. I think it's always a failure to try to adapt a television show into a comic format by and large. I do think there's exceptions. You brought up the Superboy series, and I'm going to check that out. But I do feel You have writers for television, script doctors, who will end up producing something to fit a particular format. It'll fit for television, but the pacing, the type of dialogue exchange, the way you write, it can't be the same for a TV show as it can be for a comic. You're working with limited real estate for pages, you're dealing with a different medium, and I will say this and confirm why you probably shouldn't read that Buffy series, Mike, because they brought on people who wrote for the TV show for the comic. And you can tell they did not know how to write comics. It's very clear. Things were clunky, things did not flow well, and you just can't throw in a television writer or even a novelist to be a good comic writer. There was a trend in the early 2000s where lots of novelists and TV show writers were brought on to compose comic books because industries thought, oh, this will get a lot of crossover appeal, make some bucks. But you could tell none of these people knew how to write for comics. And I will say that doesn't seem to be the case here with this Doctor Who issue we're seeing, because at the very least, this is being written by people who are experienced writing comics, not just TV shows.
Good point. Very good point. I agree. And with that, we are going to go on. We're going to skip past this stuff that is included in the Marvel premiere issue.
Oh, by the way, before you completely skip past it, can you go back to the first Dave Cockrum?
This one?
There. This is absolutely the worst Dave Cockrum art I've ever had the misfortune to see. And it saddens me because Dave Cockrum is great. That is not William Hartnell. That is not Patrick Troughton. That is absolutely not John Pertwee. What was he referencing? I have no idea. But that's not them. Either he had good reference, he just couldn't capture it at all. I mean, especially the John Pertwee looks ridiculous.
Well, I don't think Dave Cockrum is known as a, someone that can do likenesses. He's not really suited to this, So
I guess you're right.
Yeah, not everybody is,
But he's got the Daleks pretty well.
Wow.
And the Cybermen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, with that, any notes on that, Adam?
None whatsoever.
Okay, now we're going to jump to Marvel Premiere number 58. And this
the
is with
American edition, 50
yeah.
cents.
Oh, right. Good point. And this is Frank Miller art with, what's his name? What's his name?
Oh, Terry Austin.
Terry Austin, yeah, on inks, yep.
Yeah, and it's not a good rendition of Tom Baker.
It's not great. Okay, so I think, Paul, is it your turn or my turn?
I'm so negative about most of this. I'm not sure you want me to. But anyway,
go ahead.
So the cat's out of the bag. The Roman gods are actually malevolent aliens, and the crap is going down. Now the aliens show just how dastardly they are, because they leap off their pedestals and they start, I don't quite know what they're doing, eating the humans below, eating the Roman citizens below. They're just saying, yeah, what the hell? We've been found out. Let's just go and eat a few. And they're eating them. So I wonder if they've been eating them before. And after that, I don't really know. Just lots of action. Again, lots of action stuff that not really a whole load of stuff that Tom Baker would be involved in. But then again, he's got, what's his name, Morris, to do the heavy lifting. Good artwork. And then the Doctor and the Vesuvius and Morris, our Titanic trio, they find this kind of craft, like hovercraft, and can take off and escape. And they escape, but then again they don't, because there are these kind of robot, are they robot kind of guards waiting for them or something? So this is very, very actionful, and thank goodness for Morris with his sharp shooting. And it looks like they're going to get away, because that gun that Morris fires, it melts armor, which is melts metal. Mm-hmm. Very, very convenient, because then, they're melted. The opposition is melted. And Morris makes, a little joke, rust in peace. Morris make the joke. Yeah, makes the joke. Yeah, it wasn't bad. So, all right, they're out of the frying pan. Uh, but still, one of the downed sentinels manages to get in a blast and blast the crap out of Morris. And the doctor's little hovercraft here has to come down. And once it's down, he has to try to help Morris survive. But Morris doesn't survive, does he?
No, he dies here, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he dies here. That's a pity because earlier on, there was the funniest part in the whole story. I wanted to point it out, and I've missed it. It's the one where he points to his head. Do you remember that? Morris points to his head and says something. The words are just perfect. They made me laugh.
Oh,
They made me laugh.
do you remember where that was?
Sadly, no.
Okay,
But
okay.
but just a scene where he's pointing to his head,
Mm.
and very, very funny, very funny. But now we have the pathos because Morris has taken one for the team, and he can't make it. So that leaves the Doctor with Vesuvius. Again, a bit like Sam Slade with one of his bumbling robots. And off they go. Oh, that's right. Now they, again, very conveniently come across these beings, the Bestarius.
Yeah.
They're these kind of big enforcer types, and they haven't been used for, what, 200-300 years or so, but they've been left conveniently just hanging around. But they haven't been used for like 200 to 300 years. But don't worry, Doctor Who just needs to tap on a few buttons and boom, 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 the Beastmen awake, just like that after 300 years or so. And he's able to also program them so that they can go off and attack the bad guys, the overlords. But before they do, they forget to use the front door and they go out through a wall. And that was another funny comment. If we can go back to it just for a second. When they go through the wall.
Right here. Okay, yeah.
When they're going through the wall, and he says, what does he say? They have difficulty. Vesuvius says, yes, but they have difficulty, like, getting their brains to work. You mean
says,
like the difference between walls and doors? Exactly, Doctor.
Yeah, that was funny.
They're going straight through the wall. So, but again, it's not so much the wit of the Doctor from the TV show. It's the ultra convenience, and it doesn't end here either. So anyway, off they go. They're heading off to combat with the bad guys, and Doctor and Vesuvius. They're on their way to visit the Emperor, and they gain access very, very easily. So much so that the Emperor's mother's very upset with Magog, the head of security, because after all, with all your men out there doing stuff, and these clowns just made it in here with no problem, which is what they did. So she gets rid of Magog. She, you always have to pay the price.
Sorry,
Huh?
sorry, nice man. Quick correction.
Yes.
She is Magog.
She is Magog.
Saw that she was actually one of the demons in disguise.
Oh, that's
and
right.
he says, "You're
Magog.
Magog." So she obliterates Ironicus, her robotic sentry guard.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah. So the big bad instantly disintegrated by her. Just wanted to bring that up.
Because whenever you upset, what was she? Whenever you upset a dictator, a fascist, their answer is simple. You're eliminated, and they eliminate you. So they can move on. And so then we have lots more action, but then the Magog gives up the pretense of being a Roman woman and transforms into what she, he, or it really is. And that's one of these, malevolent overlords, and makes a plunge for the Doctor. But there's general fighting in the streets and big chaos and a big all-out battle. because the big guys, the brainless big guys, are doing the damage. But now the Doctor is really suffering from the attack from the Magog, and the TV camera is his only hope. So he manages to grab a TV camera and broadcast to the population, this is what your Emperor's mother really looks like. She's an alien, she's a Magog, and therefore, you need to turn against her. And the citizens do. Down with the Iron Legion.
Which never works in reality, but whatever.
And now we move on with the Magog apparently taking a bite of the Doctor's leg or something, but then dragging him into his TARDIS. Dragging him into his TARDIS. How's the TARDIS even there? But drags him into the TARDIS. And, Doctor stands in front of a particular button, and then at the right moment tricks the Magog into pushing the button, and it conveniently opens an empty dimension. The Magog goes into the empty dimension to be lost forever, and that's it. And the other bad guys trying to escape can't escape because their craft is blasted to smithereens, and all is well.
Yeah.
Have I suitably destroyed the...
No, I think that was good.
That was very suitable.
I think so. I mean, and we have just a little story at the end. We don't necessarily have to do this, but this is the explanation for why K9 was not around, right? This is by Steve Moore and Paul Neary. And to be honest, it didn't really explain anything to me, but you basically find out there's a little, if I can remember this, they have an adventure where, oh my gosh, I don't remember what happens in this one. Do you?
No.
They have this little adventure with this robot, but it doesn't explain at all why K9 was not in this story. So I don't know why they included it, but
I think
very
it was
nice
just to flesh out the page count for the American publication. Because don't forget, there was all the additional supplemental art in the first issue. They didn't quite have that here, so I think this was just a feature in one of the other Doctor Who weeklies that was just tacked on at the end.
You're right. You're probably right. Yep. But anyway, so
probably Paul Neary's best art.
It's good. Paul Neary, I know him more as an inker, right? But this art looks actually pretty good. Yeah.
Didn't he used to draw Captain America when Mark Gruenwald was writing it?
Maybe. I don't know. I can't do research because you can see my screen. I'd have to do it on my phone, but you might be right about that. But this art...
This is the best Paul Neary art I've ever seen.
It's good. Like, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I agree.
Very clean, very...
Like, look at this. Yeah. Solid.
Good
Adamantium, what do you think of this art?
I enjoy it, actually. I'm a little bit at odds with it, if only because I've just pursued 2 issues of Gibbons art. So,
sure.
That comparison, it's always going to make it seem a little subpar. But, I think I would read an entire comic with this style of artwork. I'm actually quite taken by it. I think there is a cleanliness, as was mentioned. I think there's a great amount of detail without over cross-hatching or too much detail added to characters. But again, when you compare to one of the greats that we just read 2 issues from, the art somewhat pales in comparison.
I like it very much. I like perhaps even a bit better than the Dave Gibbons art.
Whoa!
I like the panel layout, like on that previous page. It's very imaginative and yet tells the story. It's just right. And it's very, very clean. It's almost John Byrne-ish, and so on. And it's got nice touches, nice different shifting perspectives, different angles.
Well, and this is nice. Like, look at this. The storytelling's really good here, right? And like you said, the layouts, like the camera moving around, having this big close up of the hand, and then this robot in the foreground, and then the K9 way in the background. Like, this is some good panel layouts, I think. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, very. I mean, look, this is some really nice touches. It's reminding me of someone. always reminds me of someone. Who's this
Alan
reminding me of?
Davis. I don't know.
Yeah, well, yes, to an extent, yes. Alan Davis, John Byrne, touches of George Perez, you know,
Yeah, it's just very clean, very nice. Yeah.
and a more convincing, perhaps slightly more convincing rendition of Tom Baker.
As we're talking, I should have looked this up, but I just gotta Google Paul Neary. He is a British comic artist.
Yes, he's
Yeah,
dead
see,
now.
I know him as an inker for on Alan Davis. I don't think he ever did I don't think he ever did Captain America.
Well, if he didn't draw it, he certainly inked it
Like when in the 70s?
in the 80s, late
Okay.
80s, when Mark Gruenwald was writing it.
Oh, 84 to 87, you're correct. Okay, okay. And that's, as you know, my favorite Captain America run.
Boo.
Okay. Okay. So anyway,
There's a little. I don't know why Marshall Rogers is also coming to mind.
Yes,
somewhat
and
for me.
Marshall Rogers as well is coming.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes, and some Marshall Rogers in there as well. Yes. Like in that desert scene. That's
Yeah, I
like,
think so. That's what's reminding me so much of it.
it's Coyote. Marshall Rogers Coyote. I am Coyote.
okay, so not that I want to get off on a tangent, but since we're here, nice man,
Yeah.
would you say there are any British comics that are of the level of story and art of stuff we've done by Alan Moore and all this other stuff that we've completely missed out on so far?
Yes.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
you know,
Let me
the
write-
stuff from maybe not in the intelligence of the writing, but if you
Okay.
look at the artwork of people like who Bellamy and Hampton, who did like Dan Dare in Eagle and the Garth strip, which I used to see every day in the newspaper. Trigon Empire artwork. I mean, the artwork is breathtakingly good. And that's from like very late 50s and in the 60s.
Okay. No,
Frank
just something to keep in
Bellamy.
mind. Frank
yeah.
Bellamy.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Even frankly, there was a period when of Rupert the Bear and Terry Jones of Monty Python absolutely revered it, so much so that he did a documentary TV show about the writer and the artist whose run on Rupert the Bear was just storytelling excellence. It's well worth checking up on her. And I saw he went to visit the man's house when he was like a senior citizen, just to have a sit down with him. Many people have said that. Rupert the Bear, can you believe it? But
Wow.
yes,
Okay.
really, really, really good storytelling and really good art. But what's the name of the man who wrote and drew it to perfection?
Well, I mean, we can here. Let me go to my device here. It's hooked up to all the information on Earth. Rupert the Bear.
Rupert the Bear. Peak.
Was it by the creator, or was it someone else who wrote after the creator?
Yeah, after the creator. He was
Well,
brought in to do
Alfred Bestall?
it. Alfred Bestel. Absolutely.
Okay, Alfred Bestel. Okay.
Yes, yes. And again, Alfred Bestel with Rupert the Bear. Frank Bellamy, I believe, did Garth. Is his name Frank Hampson? I mean, these are treasures.
Okay, that's good to know. So overall, then, I mean, this 2-issue series was a big enough success that it led to a monthly American reprint series on Baxter paper, like I mentioned. And this was coming out just at the time that Doctor Who first aired in the US, which I guess would have been mid 70s, I think.
I guess
to late, mid to late.
PBS.
Okay, yep. And it aired in Canada first, I'd like to point out, before it aired in the US. But anyway, also Doctor Who's co-creator was a Canadian that was working, I believe, in the UK at the time.
Oh,
Now-
of course, Sydney Watson. I mean, he created it.
Yes.
Sydney, what's his name?
I don't know.
Yeah, it was a Canadian guy. He got it going because they needed a filler
Right.
in between programs, and he just wanted like a half-hour filler, children's science fiction, children's education. It was for children's education. So they
Right.
came up with a time travel machine so they could go back in time and teach children about this or that. And that's what it was. They said no bug-eyed monsters, just children's education, you know, creative, just a creative filler. What was his name? Sydney? I can't believe it.
It's Sydney Newman.
Sydney Newman. Yeah, a
Yeah.
Canadian guy. He's Canadian. Yep.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, Adamantium?
About Sidney Newman.
No, about Doctor Who, about this comic.
Okay, so I don't think tonally it quite matches what I know of the series. And granted, I do not have the level of expertise or experience that I think you are a nice man have, but I can see why this was published by Marvel. I can see Doctor Who Weekly, perhaps different runs or different strips had, greater or less grandiosity than the television series. And maybe this was selected very purposely because you have a lot of action sequences in it. You have big, malevolent, demonic-looking entities as the villains. This is kind of up Marvel's alley in terms of what they would market for. I think this comic was either released in 80 or 81 in the US, which makes sense. And especially for a market that was not familiar with Doctor Who, unless they somehow managed to import tapes over from the UK or had access to those broadcasts, the Americans would not have any idea who this character was, which gives me pause because I think if this is your introduction to this character, is this a good introduction to the Doctor? And I would argue no. I would argue the tone of it doesn't match what's in the series. I would argue that the sort of rapport between the Doctor and his human companions isn't present, so you miss that very important part of it. And even more so, you don't really understand the mythology or the lore around the Doctor. Now, granted, I don't think there's a good point to access Doctor Who. I think the lore has built up so much, and some of the best storylines don't really explain the mythology or the lore of what Doctor Who is, the universe, what a Time Lord is that well. Even myself, when I was getting into it, I really had to scramble to figure out what Doctor Who was exactly about. And shame to say, I think my first introduction was that horrific made-for-TV movie that was broadcast in America in the 1990s.
Yeah, the Eighth Doctor, yeah.
Yes. I remember not liking it. Maybe I should give it another chance. It could be better than I recall, but that soured me. Yeah, but it soured me on the Doctor for a long time because I didn't really know what the appeal was. I heard so much about it, and I love the concept of a pacifist scientist that was going through history and was more of a scallywag and a mischievous person who would have these regenerations and become a different persona after each death. And all of that is an appeal in the lore of Doctor Who. I'm thinking of this, the whole Stanley adage, every comic is someone's first comic, and every comic of a particular character is someone's first comic introducing that character. Whether you're Spider-Man, Batman, Animal Man, it doesn't matter. Would I have any idea what Doctor Who was, what the universe was about, or what was appealing about the character if I read either of these comics? And the answer is clearly no to me. And despite the fact I loved a lot of the humor in the comic, I was absolutely floored by the art. I do think my high watermark is this. If you can make me actually go, that's a good action sequence, that's incredible, because I usually hate action sequences for the most part in comics because I think they're rendered very poorly. And yet, for all that, it's not a horrible comic. It's not a great comic, and I don't think it's a great introduction to the character.
Whenever we or anybody else criticizes things like in comics or movies or something, someone could always say to us, well, we're just jealous because it's not what we would do. But well, we didn't do it and we're not doing it. But I can't help thinking, if I had done this first issue of Doctor Who, I would have set it up so that, for example, I would have told the artist, okay, I want to show how the TARDIS materializes. So can you do like a sequence where it's barely there, then a bit more there, then a bit more there, and then finally it's realized. So we can see how it materializes. But here it's just, oh, bang, it's there, right there. Just happens to be right where all the action's going to take place immediately. And Pat Mills could say, come on, give me a break. I had limited number of pages. I don't have like a continued next week story or something like this. And I've got to get right into it. You know, this is a comic book. It's not a TV show. But still, as a comic, you don't need to just have action for action's sake. Let's get into the character is interesting enough. Just first, let's show this TARDIS materializing panel by panel, you know, overlapping panel. You can just see it in your mind, can't you? A sequence of panels showing it materializing till it's materialized. Oh, so you understand it materializes. Can't the whole thing be more intriguing? Why do we have to have it materialize instantly? And there he is walking into this door, and then bang, one of the iron soldiers comes crashing through. Why can't it be more intriguing? And I guess Pat Mills would say, look, I've only got so many pages. I think he could have used the first issue to really establish Doctor Who, like you were saying, Adam, in many ways, really establish Doctor Who and get into the whole big action, whatever, in the second part, in part 2. But no, here we are on like the first, second page, bang, action. That's not what Doctor Who is.
I want to go off of what you just said, Nice Man, because let's go back to that first page of the comic.
Okay.
Unnecessary.
Yeah,
it's a big splash page. It blows the reveal. You're in this world with the Iron Legion. Why have this? Why not have a quiet start page with that materializing of the TARDIS, like you said? Why not have a slow introduction? It appears that it's here. If you don't know the Doctor Who story, it's intriguing. If you are, it's the setup. Okay, the Doctor's materialized into a particular time space, and it just looks like it's an everyday contemporary store in London, and then a cyborg comes in. And that's intriguing. That's a good setup for a story. You've already blown the intrigue because you've shown that in the first page. And I think that's just poor planning. I'm not going to give anything against Gibbons in this case, because I think they're working with a very small real estate for the pages provided. I think this is the writing that failed in this case.
Well, also, at first I admired this second page because it moves so quickly from, in one page you get introduction of the Doctor to the first twist. But knowing that you have 8 chapters and there's so much time spent on action and chase scenes and all that, they could have easily expanded this first chapter, like Paul said, and spent the whole, like this reveal could have been the last scene of the chapter, or at the very least, the tank could have been the last scene of the chapter, and you could have spent some time introducing the Doctor, introducing the TARDIS, introduce this character, then have a twist, then maybe have the tank or something. But definitely, I agree. They could have, if they knew they had the X amount of pages, they could have spent more time developing things here, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, it's a valid criticism. I did enjoy it mostly because of the art. If the art was not so good, I wouldn't, even want to read it. And I think that's another criticism of the Star Trek comics that you mentioned, Paul. Most of the art that I've come across in those DC and Marvel Star Trek comics is pretty terrible or pretty mediocre. So it's one reason not to read it.
Yeah, I wanted to enjoy the Star Trek comics, but I just thought no.
Yeah,
no.
I'm with you on that. Well, anyway, maybe we'll read some more Doctor Who, maybe we won't. But next episode, we are going to jump to the next chapter in Garth Ennis's Hellblazer. All right. It feels like we just read this, but it's been a while, actually. So I'm looking forward to it. And I also just rewatched the movie with Keanu Reeves. So
I was talking about it last night. Apparently, it's as time goes by, as with many movies, people are speaking about it more fondly than they did at the time.
It's pretty good, but it's not nearly as good as the comic. But it's better than most of the superhero movies of the 2000s.
I'll tell you one thing. One of those people who's reevaluating that movie in a positive light is not talking right now.
No? Okay. Well, you know what? You can save your comments for next week. Maybe we can slip in a little discussion about the movie as well. And you can also watch the full review of that on our sister podcast, Tape Crusaders. There's an episode with me and Bex Luthor where we talk about the Keanu Reeves film. And apparently there's rumors of them doing a sequel.
There is.
With Keanu Reeves, but I really hope they just start fresh and get a new actor. Really.
No, they're pretty well set.
Oh,
as far as I know, the script is done and approved and everything.
All right. Well, what can you do?
Can't have everything. To that Constantine fellow who was in the TV series? He actually looked like the character from the comic, at least.
He did.
Did you like the Constantine in the TV series?
It was okay.
He at least looked like him. I mean, I don't think he was a great character, a great adaptation of the character, but I think he was better than Keanu.
Have you also followed the line that just about all the writers who ever worked on the character all claim to have seen him in reality, either like across a pub or in and out of an elevator? And I think this is because the character is a bit like an everyman, you know?
Sure.
So there must be lots of people who look like him.
I know that Alan Moore definitely says he saw him.
Yes.
Yeah.
and the other writers do too.
Interesting. Okay, well, maybe we can talk more about that next episode. We're going to wrap this one up. I want to thank Adamantium and Nice Man for joining me. Another good discussion.
In record short time.
That's right. Yep. And maybe we'll have some more short episodes coming up. Some will be long, some will be short. It's all good. But in case we don't see everybody, we want to wish you all a Merry Christmas. This is Merry Christmas from UK CORRAL. And you can find all of our episodes at comicbooksyndicate.com. Until next time, see you later.